Hi, Sandy, and today I am obnoxiously wearing pink because I am bringing to you the Romance Journey book tag. So this is a tag created by Beccie at AZebraReads, and she has asked 9 other romance booktubers for prompt questions for us to answer in this tag, and I will tag everybody down below with the questions and whose questions relate to who. But I'm basically going to go through this tag, 10 questions, and answer them for you about my journey as a romance reader, which isn't actually that big because it's only really in the past year or two that the romance section that I've got down that you can't quite see has started to accumulate. So I've got the questions over here on my computer, so I will be looking over here for the questions because the minute I read them and look back, I can't remember them. Just how it is. So the first question is about how old were you when you started reading romance, and do you remember the first romance you read? So I reckon it was about 2007-ish, when I was about 14, 15, depending on what month. And the reason I've kind of guessed back to that is kind of the follow-up question, do you remember the first romance you read? So I'm pretty sure the first romance I read was Twilight, and I'm kind of working out the time that I read it because I remember pre-ordering very, very soon after I'd read this Eclipse, and as you can see I've got the paperback for this and the hardback for this because I pre-ordered this because I read this, immediately loved it, ordered New Moon on Amazon, but it was the point where Amazon Prime wasn't a thing, so I had to wait like nearly a week to get my hands on New Moon, and then pre-ordered this. So this came out in 2007, so I reckon that it was somewhere around about 2006, 2007, probably more likely 2007, when I was 14, 15, that I really started to read any sort of romance. There's nothing I can think of in my head pre-Twilight, which is terrifying. Question 2 is a bit more of a follow-up. Did you deliberately seek out romance, or did you stumble upon it, and how? So I probably stumbled upon it, I think. I wasn't like, I'm going to read romance. It was just, here's this book that everybody's talking about, Twilight, and my friends were reading it, and I have one particular friend that got me into romance, and she's also the one that got me into a book series that I'll talk about later on, but she let me borrow her copy of Twilight, and I read it, and I loved it, and it paralleled so much in my head of what I was going through at the time as a teenage girl, so that I immediately just latched onto it, and I absolutely loved it. And yeah, so it was kind of more like a hype friend rec type thing, because my friend group were the like emo-y, like we're all dark and, you know, Twilight readery, you know, that type of friend group. So it was really friend recommendation and then the hype. I mean, look at this book. I keep my books in pristine condition, and this is like, to me, this is wrecked because it is unbelievably cracked up. I've read this book somewhere in the region of like 15 times. It's probably my most read book that I own. Question 3 is, did you start with traditionally published or indie, and has it switched? So as you can tell, it's traditional. It's been traditionally published books for a long time. I have only recently, in the past year, started to read indie published books. I do have the indie published versions that you can only just no more see on the end there of the Laura Thalassa Bargainer series, and they have now been traditionally published. Romance I don't tend to go for. Again, as you can see, a lot of these are your standard size paperbacks. Don't tend to go to indie published just because I'm not familiar with indie publishing. I go into a bookstore, read the back of the books, and that's how I choose my books. So mostly traditional publishing. And has it switched? No, not really. I am getting more into indie published books, but it's still mostly traditional. Question 4 is, what was a romance trope you were afraid to try but ended up loving? The first one that popped into my head was a second chance romance. I am fully backing and behind, and will continue to sort of say to people that it is my belief that the worst thing you could possibly do is get back together with an ex. Now, if you know me IRL, you know that I don't follow my own advice. However, especially now that I'm older, I can see why that happened. So I did it and I learned from it, and now I tell other people not to do it. Do not go back to your ex. Don't do it. You broke up for a reason. There are certain circumstances in which it works. There are. I'm not gonna say there's not. There are. It is a nuanced topic, but generally, if you broke up for a reason. And unless that is a reason that can be changed, like if it's a reason that can be dealt with successfully and sort of adapted, fair enough. Like I've seen couples get back together who've had problems in the past. They've gone away, looked at themselves, dealt with themselves, come back together as two slightly different people who work a lot better. Totally works. But whereas like my relationships, it was like arguing and abuse and nastiness that split us apart. So that's not a relationship you need to go back into. So for me, second chance romance was kind of like, why would you get back with your ex? And I've learned that it's not necessarily that. You've got second chance romance where it's, you possibly had a chance at romance, say when you were younger, and someone moved away and then they come back and, you know, there's a chance for romance there. Like it's a bit more nuanced. And then there are other second chance romances where it works because, like I said, sometimes relationships need people to step away, focus on themselves for a while before they can come back together and see if they work. So I now love second chance romance as long as it's written well. Question 5. Is there a romance book you read early on in your journey that you would rate differently today? Oh, definitely. There are 3 series really that I read, and you'll see a theme. 3 books that I read in the series that sort of formed my early reading journey and also my relationship journey. It's just, I'll show you. So the first one is obviously Twilight. Looking back at this as an adult, as an adult, if I'd read this first time as an adult, I'd be like, what the hell is this? But reading it as a teenager, and even now, sometimes looking back on it, because my experience was very similar in some ways to Bella, like in the sense that I lived in a small village and I didn't like being stuck there, and like there was a lot of what she did that made sense to me, and the dramatics of it all were very realistic. Like, to me, losing a boyfriend would have been the end of the world. Like, I get it, and especially in New Moon, like, that hit me right in the feels. Like, I understand it's not healthy. I'm not saying it's healthy. I'm not saying you should aspire. I'm just saying it's relatable. But nowadays, as an adult, I probably would be like, maybe not. Following on from that, Vampire Diaries. So toxic. So unbelievably toxic. The characters in here, awful. The relationships in here, awful. Everything about this is toxic. But dear God, did I read this at a time where it just went right in there. And I love it. But I also am like, So yeah, I mean, this was written in the 90s. These both were written in the 90s. In the early 90s. This didn't come out until later, but this was like, they were both written around the same time. And where things like this were a lot more normal. And yeah, like, don't go for the bad boy, just don't do it. Just don't do it. And then one that's kind of like, one where I have to sort of suspend my adult brain when I'm rereading it because I love the series, and that is Vampire Academy. The relationship in here, to me, is a fated mates scenario. It's a fated mate scenario. There's a lot of like extra bits going on in the background that my brain can twist round and excuse. But at the end of the day, this is a romance where there's an imbalance of power. This is a romance where one is a student and a child, and the other one is not a teacher, but like in that sort of supervisory position, and is older. Now, he's not that much older. I think he's like early 20s and she's 17, 18, 19 as it continues on, but 17, I think, just about to turn 18 when she first meets them. But again, like with Twilight, I recognise myself in a lot of this. Like, if like when I first read this, I didn't twig onto their ages. I didn't actually like twig that there was an age difference, especially like the other books I read were vampires. When it comes to vampires, age doesn't get into my brain because there can be centuries between people, and it doesn't. Now as an adult, I'm like, oh, no. But like Dimitri and Rose are my only exception, because to me they are endgame. They have always been meant to be together. It's fated, it's in the stars, whatever you want to say about it. And I also think that Dimitri is very much not a pursuer in this. He tries to like be like no, and she doesn't take no as an answer, and he's very firm and be like no. Like it's not like he's like no, oh I suppose, like he really is like no, there's a line here, and she's like pfft. And I love that. But I love Rose as a character. She's a great character, and I want both of them to be happy, and if that means being together, that means being together. I don't mean to but just nowadays let's just leave it in the past. It's fine. Question 6. How has your taste in romance evolved over the years? So how it has changed, as you can see, a lot of my sort of start-up romance is like paranormal romance, teenage girls with significantly older men. Do you know when you just realise a trend, although she's not a teenager, but you know what I mean? Yeah, I have a thing about vampires. I love vampires. I love vampire romance. Don't know what it is about it. Maybe because I feel like older men are a lot better than younger men that we've got nowadays. Maybe that's it. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, it has definitely changed because now I prefer a lot more realistic romances, if that makes sense. I like romance books where you find the characters or someone you want to emulate. A romance type, a romance trope that you would like to see. Like, if it was a relationship, it'd be a healthy relationship. You know, two individual people who just happen to be in a relationship and they're open and they're honest and they're healthy. Like, that's what I prefer now from a lot of my romances. I do like some suspension of disbelief, and I'm still an absolute sucker for vampire romance, like paranormal romance. Well, it's kind of more a fancy romance. You know, like give me a paranormal romance anyway, but it's like deep in my psyche because that was where I started. So it has changed because I prefer more realistic, contemporary, like what used to be like chick lit romance. And now that people are stepping out and going, well, no, actually, I like this, and we shouldn't be ashamed. I am fully on board that train. Question 7 is, what is the most powerful romance that you have read that left a lasting impact? So, I'm probably not going to shock anybody when I say this, but I'm going to say Vampire Academy as part of my answer for this because, to me, like I said, Dimitri and Rose are endgame. What they go through to be together is unreal, and there's a bit at the end that I know some people don't like, and I get it, but I can't tell you how much I wish I was like Rose. Like, she is so confident, she is so herself and unapologetically herself, and the fact that Dimitri looks at that and goes, I love you for that. Like, I love you because of who you are, because you're strong, because you're capable, because you don't need me to rescue you. Like, you can rescue me. Like, he goes toe-to-toe with her. Like, she goes toe-to-toe with him. She will stand up to anybody. And as a character, that really resonated to me. That's who I wanted to be. I had been like Bella, where I was very passive in my life, and Rose made me realise that I needed to have that fire. And Dimitri is so noble and so kind and so somebody that I would like love to have as a partner, that I just loved it so much. That just stuck with me. Like, I want women who can stand up to men, and for the men to be like, I respect that. Another one for that is this series, which is the Lindsay Sands Arjuna series. These are the old covers. I'll show you the new covers in a minute. This is the first one, A Quick Bite. This is a vampire paranormal romance. Again, it's kind of sci-fi-esque romance because it's sci-fi vampires, but paranormal romance nonetheless. These characters, again, are so respectful, so equal, despite the fact that one clearly has an advantage over the other because one's a vampire, one's a human, so they've got the strength and like all that stuff, but in the end they're still human. And I love Lindsay Sands. Like, she writes the best characters in my opinion, and it's just, these romances just will always be some of my favourites. Question 8 is, what was the romance book that told you this is what I'm looking for in my personal life and or partner? So for this, I've gone for Lindsay Sands in general. This is just one of the ones I've grabbed off the shelf, and it is the new cover set. So I said I would show you. These are the old ones, this is the new one. And I love Lindsay Sands' characters. Lindsay Sands writes characters like nobody else. And these have been, again, being written for at least since the late 90s, I believe. So the change in our characters as they grow and as things change and as we move on, because she's still writing them, the way the adaptations are made to fit what's going on now is incredible to me. Like, these characters, you've got these men who are old, who are like thousands of years, sometimes like hundreds to thousands of years old, who might be grumpy, who might be stuck in their ways, who might be old-fashioned as old-fashioned gets, and they adapt and they learn and they go, okay, here's something new that I have to figure out how to deal with, and they do it. And they respect their partners, and they respect their family members, their sisters, the women in their lives. They respect them, and it's very difficult, I find, to find men who truly respect women, and Lindsay Sands writes these men, but she also writes a plethora of kick-ass women. These are not the same women in different fonts. These are capable women who have a variety of professions and a variety of skills that they bring to the table. Each one grows this story. Each person that joins the story improves this story and grows this world and is brought into this family, because it's like a big found family, brought into this family, and it's like, okay, what are your capabilities? Here's how, like, these can be integrated into this giant organisation, because there's an organisation within this as well. I love that. Nobody is useless, nobody is seen as lesser, and all these characters, they want to help each other, they want to, you know, be this family, they want to give each other independence, and even when they could become abusive, there's a few in this where the women have been in abusive relationships and are worried about the new relationships, and when the men have a chance to, there's a pivotal point in relationships that I always see where you can, like, someone has said something or done something to upset you, and you can either tip over and make them feel bad and, you know, go in the direction that often will lead to abuse, manipulation, that sort of thing, or you can step back and respect it. And obviously every single time these characters will go, you know what, I can understand where you've come from, I'm sorry if I get upset about something, it's nothing to do with me. Like, they step back and they think about it and they talk about it and they discuss things, and that is what I want in a partnership, and I love these characters so much. Question 9 is, which romance books would you recommend to a romance newbie and a seasoned romance reader? This was a bit more difficult for me because I don't think I'm a seasoned romance reader, but I'm also not a newbie. So what I've gone for here is, for a newbie, is Jenny Han's Tell the Boys I've Loved Before. It is not spicy, it is not like over the top or anything like that. It's just a nice, cosy romance with low stakes, but still that feeling of being in high school. I don't know what it is, it's just, this is soft. It's a soft, quiet romance, and I think that's a really, really good when you're getting into romance, and this is one of the earlier ones I started reading over the past couple of years, over the pandemic, before the film came out. So, you know, I really do recommend this if you're just trying to get into romance, because it's nice and it's sweet and it's, like I say, low stakes. For a seasoned romance reader, I don't know what I would necessarily recommend, so I've gone for Emily Henry. I think that Emily Henry is one of the best romance writers out there, because it's not just like, you know, the old style, what's it, like Regency or like historical romances. These are real people, these are real situations, these are true to life romances, and I love that about them. And each of the characters is so well written, and it just, I don't know, there's something about Emily Henry. She's one of my favourite writers, especially for romance. Question 10 is, in your eyes, what are 3 perfect romances. And for me, I have chosen 3, which might surprise you. So the first one I have chosen is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. This is the second newest Emily Henry. It's the last one that I've read. There is still Happy Place that I've not read, but this book, from the prologue, I knew it was going to be a 5-star. This is, to me, one of the best romances because it is exactly the kind of characters that I want to see. Our main character, Nora, she doesn't take any nonsense. She knows what she wants, and she is not apologetic about how she goes about getting that. And the thing is, she doesn't go about getting it by hurting anybody around her and, you know, just gung-ho going into it. She works hard, and she doesn't say sorry for the fact that she works hard. She, like, if I saw a tag earlier, I'll tag the booktuber that did it, where she was doing a tag of a book for every song in the Lover album, and this reminds me of the song The Man, because that's what it is. Nora is that woman that is the bitch, you know. She is the cold-hearted ice queen who, you know, doesn't want to find a husband and just settle down with kids because she's a bitch and wants a career, and that's not really how it goes. So yeah, I love this so much. This is one of my favourite romances of all time. The second one for this is You Deserve Each Other by Sarah Hogle. Thank you very much to Meg and Chloe for making me read this. This book is the second chance romance to end all second chance romances. This is about a couple who are due to be married in 4 months, and they hate each other. They hate each other. And the thing is, whoever calls off the wedding has to pay for everything that's already been, like, done. And this book is about how much they hate each other. Like, they are purposely trying to drive each other up the wall, but in doing that, they start to realise all the things they originally fell in love with. And to me, it is a perfect second chance romance. It's just, that's all I can say about it, is you just need to go with it because it is fantastic. And the third option, which is going to make Becca very happy, is Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood. This by far is my favourite Ali Hazelwood. I don't know what it is about Elsie and Jack, but they are just my favourite couple. I love this book so much. It is heavier than Ali Hazelwood's other books on the science part of it, especially physics, which I actually do really enjoy about it. Like, I love this book. It's about Elsie, who is a kind of professor. I can't remember the actual word for it. Adjunct professor? She's basically working at this school under her old PhD supervisor, and she doesn't make much money, so on the side she is a fake girlfriend. And she has one client who's the only client that she goes on multiple dates with. So basically, like, she goes to events and pretends to be their girlfriend because their family are like, why don't you have a girlfriend? And she applies for a tenure position at MIT, and turns out Jack, who is the brother of her client, is one of the chairs, and he says to her that she's never going to get this job, and so she's like, screw you, I'm going to do the best I can. He's like, yeah, but you're still not going to get the job. The person I've put forward is going to get the job. And she thinks it's a battle and it's just a whole thing, but at the same time he also thinks that she is like doing something weird with his brother because his family think she is like a librarian or something. I can't quite remember, but he knows that she's lied about profession to the family, but he doesn't know that his brother has been hiring her as a fake girlfriend, and she doesn't want to out his brother. Like, she doesn't want to say, like, oh, I'm like a fake girlfriend. She doesn't want to do that, so she has to play along while also being like, that's not what you think. And his brother obviously can't be reached because he would be able to clear everything up in an instant. But they've got these days together where they get to know each other, and it's just, I love these two. Like, I absolutely love these two, and I love this book, and we'll continue to pick up anything Ali Hazelwood writes. So that is the Romance Journey book tag. If you want to do this tag, please do. I will tag all the questions and the original creator in the description. And I'm not going to tag anybody because I'm terrible at doing this. So yeah, if you want to do it, please do. I have a feeling I know some friends that might do this, but I'm not sure. So yeah. Thanks very much for watching. Every link will be down in the description, and I will see you in the next video.